So, I mean, one of the reasons I was telling you earlier, the reasons I admire you is I actually went to college on a football scholarship, played wide receiver. You know, my calling was to go to law school, however. But really, thank you for letting me live vicariously over the years. And, you know, I didn't have the talent or the speed. But anyway, I digress. Let's jump right into this. You've become really one of the well-known voices of sort of the movement by NFL players and athletes around social change and racial justice. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. You know, the movement's been, associated with the national anthem protests, Take the Knee. But I really want to hear from you how you see it. You know, what is this about, really? And what is it not about? I'd really love to hear that from you in your words.
I think, first and foremost, it's definitely not about guys being unpatriotic.
Yeah.
It's not about guys being anti-military or anti-police. It's about guys raising awareness about racial injustices and racial inequalities in our country.
Yeah. No, that's right. And is it frustrating to you? I mean, how frustrating has it been to see sort of it, become about, the anthem or the flag, and when you talk to the guys, like, how do they think about that?
I think it's been frustrating that the message has kind of gotten away from us as players. I think we've been trying to redirect the message back to the original purpose. But obviously there's people out there who want to divert that message. And for me, I think it's because people don't want to deal with the real issues. They try to speak around what guys are actually kneeling about.
Right. And you've been involved in I want to talk about the issues, actually. So we talk about racial injustice, and it's a lot of components. You're talking about criminal justice reform, economic development, changing police behavior, all of those things that I know lots of players are working on, and you've been tireless in working on these issues. You've gone to town halls, you've been meeting with police, community meetings, grassroots organizations. I know you've been to Washington. That used to be part of my job, so I know I feel you on that one. It's not always fun, but tell us a little more about how you're making an impact, and and the work that you're doing, especially now that you've left the NFL, or you're not playing.
Yes. Well, for me, I initially got started. I lost my cousin October 18th. This year would be 2 years. My cousin Corey Jones was killed by an officer. He was on his way home from a concert he just did. He was the drummer in his band, and he was coming back home from a gig, and his car broke down on the side of the road. And unfortunately, that cost him his life. The best thing that came out of it was he was on the phone with roadside assistance at the time of his murder.
Right.
When the cop pulled up on him. The cop who approached him was an undercover officer. He was in plain clothes in an unmarked vehicle. And it's unfortunate because what the officer said happened was not what was on the tape.
Right.
And even though we have all of that evidence as to what happened, 2 years later, the officer is on house arrest, hasn't gone to trial. He still maintains a job. He's still able to take his kids to school.
Wow. Still
able to go get haircuts. So for me, this is one of the reasons why I got involved in criminal justice reform and racial inequalities. I feel that, police accountability is a major issue.
Yeah.
And I often talk to people about, the differences in the way that I see policing now and how I was policed, or my community was policed when I was younger. Back then, it was more of a family feel. The officers that we had in our community back then were officers who went to school with your mom or your grandparents. They were actually coaches in recreational leagues that you had. So there was a relationship between the people in the community and the police department.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten away from that.
So with officers who are sort of live other places and kind of come in to do the policing.
Who don't understand the dynamics of certain communities. They're just there to earn a paycheck.
Yeah, and what are some of the things we can do in light of that you think we can do to improve things?
Well, I definitely think putting policies in place, police body cams is one. But like you said, when it comes to criminal justice reform, that's a broad umbrella. There's a lot of things that fall up under that. Bail reform, mass incarceration.
Sentencing.
Yes, sentencing, Clean Slate Act. So there's a lot of things that fall under criminal justice reform.
Yeah. Do you think the league is doing enough to support players who are looking to make an impact on these issues?
Honestly, I've been surprised of the support that we've been able to garner from the NFL. We've recently had a meeting a couple weeks ago, a couple players and a couple owners.
Yeah, right.
We've been able to just talk about different issues, ways that the NFL can help. And that's one of the reasons why guys were protesting. Guys felt like they didn't have a platform to raise awareness for different issues.
Right.
And I know a lot of people will be like, well, protest on your own time.
Right.
But you're most visible on Sunday. If a guy is kneeling during practice, trust me, nobody's paying attention to that.
Exactly.
You probably think he's taking a break because he's tired.
Right.
So guys protest at that point in time because that's when they're most visible.
Well, let me ask you about the consequences. So Colin Kaepernick's out of work. Other players have lost endorsement deals. Von Miller and Brandon Marshall, a number of others. Putting aside the backlash coming from various places, there's been a cost. And professional athletes I know are business people. They consider themselves business people. So what, in terms of incurring a cost for standing up and making a statement, what do you think that says, sort of lesson-wise, to people in this room, most of whom or many of whom are business people, who might want to take an unpopular stand on an issue of that they care deeply about?
I honestly think there's no cost too big to pay for doing the right thing. Yeah. If it means losing every endorsement I've ever had, I'm fine with that. But I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that I stood up for what's right and I was able to help other people that didn't have a voice. And that's one of the main things that we have to understand. Like, a lot of these issues we're raising awareness about is for people who can't speak, whose voices aren't being heard. So that's why you see guys stepping up and, they don't mind losing the endorsements because it's for the greater good of this country.
Yeah, yeah. And you have there's a history here, right? I mean, there are folks who took stands, that make it possible for guys to be doing what they're doing, people to be doing what I'm doing. And so does that inspire you as well?
Definitely. You've had athletes come before you who've, the unfortunate part is they've been talking about the same issues we're talking about right now.
Right.
Ages ago.
Yeah.
But I had an opportunity to speak on a panel with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown.
Right.
And John Carlos, some of the guys that I admire in the stance that they took when it was very unpopular.
Right.
But those are the guys who've paved a way for guys like myself to be able to step out front and use your voice.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a resurgence of that now? I mean, it felt like we went from the Jim Browns and Kareems and Muhammad Ali's and to a point where Michael Jordan would say explicitly, I'm not going to ever get involved in anything. Do you think we've sort of the pendulum has come back to activism in general?
I think so. I think guys are understanding just how powerful their voice is.
Right.
I think guys are understanding the audience that they're able to gather and the change that they can affect around them. I think athletes are more aware now. It's not just about making top dollar, but it's about, helping those that need help.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you, you talked a little bit about the incident with your cousin, and how were you thinking about it? I mean, you look like you can still play. I know you can still play. And, you talked about it being sort of a higher calling, or things that you had that were more important for you to do. Do you still feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Walking away from football wasn't easy for me.
Yeah.
It's something that I've dedicated my life to. I've been playing football, organized football, since I was in the 8th grade. So for me, it's second nature. It's what I love to do. It's my passion. It's been my heart's desire for the past 20-something years.
Right.
So for me to walk away from the game when I'm healthy and I still have the ability to play wasn't an easy decision. But for me, sitting in the hotel during training camp while I was in Buffalo and seeing the images of Charlottesville come across the screen, enough was enough for me.
Right.
Seeing how divided we were as a country didn't sit well with me.
Right.
And I was always taught, we always say how great of a country we are, but a house divided will eventually fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't get on the same page as Americans, then we're gonna crumble as a nation.
And as a leader doing this, when you're talking to other guys, who are coming up and playing, and even, college players, and I'm sure you're talking to a lot of younger folks, what do you tell them about when they're thinking about, making a team and, getting a contract or getting a scholarship? What do you tell them about these issues?
I mean, that's great. To pursue your passion and your dreams is a great thing. But at the end of the day, you have to live this life outside of yourself. You have to do something other than something that pleases you, something that's self-motivating. And I think helping others is the best way to live this life, to be a servant in this life. Because all of the accolades, that fades one day. Yeah. You break records, somebody comes behind you and break that record as well. You earn money, money comes and goes. You can buy but so many houses, so many cars, but it's what you do for other people that's really gonna last. Right. That's your real legacy.
Well, Anquan, thanks so much for being here. This is your work is truly inspiring, especially me, who's an ex-athlete, and to see the movement that you're helping to lead. I think we all really thank you for what you're doing, and we know we can make progress on all these issues. We the people, right? Thank you, Anquan.
Thank you.